I could not see uniforms. All I saw was a silhouette of a man. I only saw one of them at this point, with an AR-15 testing my door. And if he comes through that door, I'm shooting.
Lizzie and I have practiced drills of what we do if Islamists break into our house. We have a set, because we wouldn't call the police. That's for sure. And that's so sad. We're being treated worse than the slaves of the people that are invading our country. That's how we're treated. That's how the indigenous British people are treated, of all skin colours. The people that pay tax in this country, the people that contribute to the economy, they're being treated like the scum slaves. I treat the police as an absolute fundamental enemy of the British people, all of them.
Yeah, and that's very sad.
Welcome to another episode of What the Taunton is going on? Larry, I know you're used to having, quiet weeks, but this is a particularly uneventful week for you. And I'm going to struggle. It's going to be hard to get some info out of you. So, just talk me through it. Was it just walking dogs and relaxing, or did anything eventful happen?
This week, it was just a week of just laying about the house and in the hammock and reading and quiet walks with the dog and chats with the wife. This was a crazy. It's not just a crazy week, Laza. It's been a crazy month. First I had that whole episode in Cairo with USAID, and then a SWAT team shows up at my house at 1 a.m., and we'll be showing you some video of that, of people walking around my house with AR-15s on my deck in silence and in darkness. And that was quite startling. Other than that, it's been a really, really mundane week. How about for you, Laza?
Yeah, my week's obviously always more interesting than yours. It's nearly dying. It is kind of, that's Monday to Friday for me. So, just because I don't want to steal the thunder here. So if you could just tell our English viewers, as your American viewers, I think, already understand what happened. What is swatting, Larry? What happened to you? And can you tell us a story, please?
Yeah, swatting, the term SWAT is, it's an acronym, Special Weapons and Tactics. It's a reference to kind of the police equivalent of a sort of special forces. These are guys who are sent into hostage situations or mass shootings or things of that nature. And it's just a general term. I have some people come in and who watch the video of these sheriff's deputies walking around my property with AR-15s pointed inside my home and go, that's not a SWAT team. Those are just regular cops. It's just a term. It's just a term for people. You arrive at your house in the middle of the night with not typical armament. They're carrying AR-15s. AR-15s are semi-automatic rifles, and they're wearing body armor. And there were 5 of them who came to my home. And what happened, Laza, was they had received a call. Now, I live in a very, as you know, you've been to my home several times. I live in a very remote area. Nothing really ever happens out here. This is the kind of place where people, might leave the keys in their car and their doors open, because it really is kind of a boring place in a good way, a very peaceful place. And the police would tell me later that, rather, the sheriff's deputies would tell me later that they had received a call from someone who claimed to be inside my home, saying that they had been shot, that they were hiding. And there were 3 men, this is kind of over the top, 3 men in hoodies with rifles going throughout the house, executing people. So what did they do? Well, they responded to that, as you would think they might. They were dispatched to come here, and it would take them a while to get here, maybe 40 minutes to get to where I live. And along the way, police departments from other nearby towns joined in. So there were 9 cars in all at the top of my driveway. I would discover after the fact, but they They came in black, meaning they didn't come with sirens. They didn't come with lights. They came in, and they didn't even come down my driveway. They parked away from the house, and they, put on their body armor, and they grabbed their AR-15s, and they came down my driveway. And I have video of this coming down, kind of grainy video. You only see 3 of them here. 2 would go onto the perimeter of the house, and they're coming down. They're jacked. They've I'm sure the adrenaline is flowing. They think they're going into a active shooter situation, perhaps thinking they're going to be shot and killed. And I'm unaware of any of this, but except that I am in the house, and my enormous German Shepherd Ranger. And Ranger's a typical German Shepherd, except a little smarter. I've had 6 of them. And I love the breed because they're great with children. German Shepherds, if you're not familiar with the breed, anybody who's listening, they're not to be compared with, say, a Chow or a Doberman or Pit Bull. Sometimes people make those silly comparisons. German Shepherds have very stable temperaments. They're very good with people. They're terrific with children. But they're not lap dogs, meaning they have an intensity to them, and they don't have to be trained to be vigilant. They're natural guard dogs. And Ranger, I was going to feed him. Again, this is 1 a.m. and I don't sleep particularly well, so I'm feeding him. I'm trying to give him an antibiotic. He got an infection while I was, out of the country, and I'm giving it to him with food. And normally he just eats that up, but on this particular occasion, he's standing a little taller, and his ears are up like satellite dishes. They're moving back and forth, and he's sniffing the air, and the fur on his shoulders is up. And I always know you need to be paying attention to a dog like this. And I wasn't thinking, oh wow, I have 5 men with weapons coming down my driveway. I was thinking, maybe I have a squirrel or raccoon that's gotten into the wall, or maybe a rodent is in the house, because he's kind of patrolling and smelling. And this is before these guys were on my deck. Anyway, I went to bed, and but I hadn't turned off the light yet. And I look at the end of the bed, and Ranger's there, ears up, looking out of the bedroom towards the front door. And it was then that I saw a flicker of light off of my bedroom door, which I had open. These guys were using flashlights. They had by now were on the deck. And so Ranger starts advancing towards the door. I'm noticing that, he's doing this. So I jump up and immediately draw a weapon, a Glock 19, which is a pistol. And I'm advancing towards the door. I'm leaving the room. And I see a guy, and you have to bear in mind, again, they're coming in silence, coming in darkness. And I cannot see they're in uniforms. If you watch the video that you'll see here of a guy testing my door.
He looks so tense as well. Like this is what makes me so anxious for everybody. Just the tension that all of these men's bodies are locked in. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
No, well, there's an infrared quality to these cameras, and it gives the impression that that I could see more than I could. So I could not see uniforms. All I saw was a silhouette of a man. I only saw one of them at this point, with an AR-15 testing my door. And if he comes through that door, I'm shooting. And for those in the UK or perhaps in some blue state, some of this will be a little foreign to you. I mean, I hope men showing up at your at your home in the middle of the night is foreign to everyone who's listening here. But in red state America, we all have guns to defend ourselves, and usually not just one, several. And it's a good thing to have. I mean, the Second Amendment is very important. But if he breaches my doorway without identifying himself, I'm going to open fire. And fortunately, the door was locked, so he kind of moved on. And then I saw 2 more guys, again, just silhouettes. And they're talking to each other, and they're not whispering, but they're not loud. And I'm thinking, if these are some kind of assassins, they're not very good at it. And I see the flicker off of what I think might be a badge. And then I do again, and I'm thinking, is this police? What are they doing? Are they chasing, like an escaped convict? I mean, why in the world would these men be on my porch? So rather than, in order to turn on the deck lights, I would have to walk across a large open space where I would be an easy target. And I didn't want to do that because I still wasn't sure what was going on. So I took the risk of turning on the indoor light, which illuminated me and not them, which is really the opposite of what you want. But I'm, by this time, starting to think it might be police officers. And then you'll see a video here where he identifies himself.
Police department! Police department! Police department!
Here he is saying, police department, police department. And fortunately, he was, by this time, he's already starting to think this is a bogus call, but I'm not hiding my weapon, because if they're police, I want them to see that I have one. If they're baddies, I want them to see that I have a weapon. And things de-escalated from there, but wow. I mean, this was just a few nights ago.
If your deck door was open and he had got into the house before you'd been able to make that assessment, that, before you'd seen the flash, it's such a miracle that and you actually are quite, whenever I've stayed at your house, you're very like, make sure the door is locked and all that stuff. So, if that door had been opened, and you could have, you're making split second decisions and everyone's very highly charged, then, there may be one dead police officer and your entire family dead.
Yeah.
As the result,
exactly.
As the result of somebody who hates you so much that they don't want to argue with you, they want you dead. And that's, for me, I've always thought that this is where it ends with people with especially with leftists. It's not about life, it's about death for them. It's like, you either listen to me or you die. And I'm just so, it causes me so much, just the thought of, like, in a 5-second period, my friend and his wife and his dog, most importantly, because obviously Ranger is the true hero here. You're second rate when it comes to Ranger, but everyone could be dead. And as the result of someone who doesn't like the fact that you spend your time trying to expose corruption and save people from bad situations in their life. And it makes me, it's weird because we tried to record this podcast 3 days ago or something. And the gremlins that stopped us were brutal on every level. But I started to think of it in terms of the 2020 election. I was like, we just have to wait until the next opportunity we have. And it's almost now that you're describing it in a calmer way, you've slept a bit more, and I'm not so furious about it. I'm filled with a real sadness that these people you cannot negotiate with them. They're terrorists. There's no negotiating with those that, would be sat in a bar and then going, did you see what happened up at Larry Taunton's place? And you're just like, I don't know how you cope with people like that. How one copes with an enemy with that level of hatred towards life. I'm kind of at a loss for words, other than that ideology needs to be obliterated from this planet. Not the people, but the ideology. It needs to be soundly destroyed because it's so evil. It's so, so, so evil. And I'm so grateful that you guys are alive. And I'm so glad that you captured it as well. I'm so glad that your cameras captured it. I'm so glad that you can see body language is so, so important. That you can see how he's almost got his hand is almost kind of, you can see you're 1 second from disaster. And for me, it's kind of unforgivable. I would hunt these people down. I would double up security. I don't know what I'd do, but it's just, for that to happen to you, I'm so pleased that it's brought awareness. There's been a huge amount of I'm not on the internet, but people keep sending me stuff, and it's great that this is now a major thing, and hopefully you're being able to capture it, your level-headedness in the situation while dealing with it will not only save your lives, but it will save the lives of other people who this tactic is going to be tried on. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But on the other hand, I just think I have no quarter. Give these people no quarter. If they don't want to talk,
100%. I'm reminded of this verse. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might, put on the whole armor of God, that you might be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places.
Is there, sorry to interrupt you a bit, is there a princes and principalities bit to that or not? Or is that another verse?
Well, again, it says here that, against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you might be able to withstand the evil of this day, having done all to stand firm. And we have different translations that put it just a little bit differently. But for people who, might be new to watching WTF, Laza is somewhere outside of London. I am in the American South. So our show has to be done, with the aid of something that's similar to Zoom, kind of a more professional studio version of Zoom. And we are trying to record this show. And, sometimes you have technical difficulties where, say, his earphones don't work or mine don't work, or there's a problem with the camera on one end or my end. We couldn't get anything to work. I mean, nothing worked. Yeah. Not on his end, not on my end. It would work for a minute and then it wouldn't work. I mean, gremlins all in the system. And it just sometimes feels like there are things that you're trying to address, that you're trying to do, that you're trying to draw attention to. And I really feel like, Laurence, that's what we can do. We've been blessed with platforms that allow us to bring attention to issues, that allows us to equip people, to encourage them, hopefully sometimes amuse them. And in the way that an ordinary person perhaps might not have that. For instance, Lori, my wife, she doesn't have an online media presence. She don't want one. But if something happens to her and she doesn't know somebody who has one, then maybe the baddies just get away with it because no one would know anything about it, and she would be struggling to get that information out there. We're able to do that, but the people who are doing this, Laurence, what they're doing, and I've seen a lot of attempts to dump on the sheriff's deputies, the police department, and I can't speak for the other swatting incidences. And again, this is happening to other conservative writers, commentators in my country. I think I was the 12th one. Maybe by now there are about 15 of them. So I can't speak to the police officers in other instances. In mine, I do not fault them. And I know there are a lot of people who do, but all they do, it's not their job to determine whether a call is real or whether it's fake. They're just given information by a dispatcher who says, you have to go to this place. There's an active shooter. Now, there has to be a discussion at a higher level that begins to work out. My email can determine whether, for the most part, whether an email is legit or it's spam, and it can separate them out. There has to be some kind of something, a way of processing this. But you're absolutely right, Laurence, about the cameras. In my case, I've been hearing from, I'm now part of a group you don't want to join, and it's people who have all been swatted. So they've reached out to me, and we have kind of I don't know what you want to call it, kind of a closed loop, sort of conversation just amongst us, a chat where people are sharing information. And some of the stories these people are sharing are are terrifying, and where the police did not act the way they did in my case, and where and why Ranger is a hero here, Laurence, is because if I'm asleep, like one guy told me a story this morning, he was asleep and police show up at his house. They think he's been killing everyone because that's what they had been told. He's told to come out of the house backwards with his hands raised, get on the ground. He's cuffed. All this stuff happens. I mean, obviously terrified. His wife is terrified, says his wife can't sleep now. She's very nervous, doesn't want him to leave the home. Ranger's a hero here because instead of me going from 0 to 60, let's just say I was jarred awake. I'm in REM and I'm hearing Ranger, barking and something going on. I pull a weapon. Who knows what happens in a scenario like that? As it was, I went from 30 to 60 rather than 0 to 60. I'm already on edge thinking something is going on. So I have a little bit of time to think in a clear-headed way. And the police officer in charge here, an Officer King, I asked him later, what did you think when you saw me, holding a weapon? He said, I thought it was reasonable. He said, I thought I would have one. I would. He said, so I didn't think you were planning to open fire on us. I realized by this time that we had received a bogus call and you were responding the way a sensible homeowner would. And this is what I call country boy good sense. It doesn't exist apparently in blue states, perhaps not in the UK, but it does where I live. And I'm so grateful for that because this could have turned out very badly.
It's interesting that you draw a clear delineation between different police forces. And I noticed the only thing I really noticed about Alabama, which is what I really love compared to other places I've been in the United States, is that there's a huge level of politeness with it, with the, it's the carry a big stick and speak softly approach to life that you notice in Alabama. Everyone's very polite, but as you said, everybody has a truck gun. Everybody is armed, and an armed society is a polite society. And you look at the rest of the world and how I mean, certainly the United Kingdom. Yeah, every single interaction I've had with the police in the United Kingdom has been negative. The most recent one is when they came to arrest me and harass and intimidate me because of comments that I'd made about how bad the surveillance state was becoming in the United Kingdom.
So because of Twitter comments?
Because I said that I supported the removal of the infrastructure of the surveillance state. So the police then tried to say to me that was inciting criminal damage. And they then decided that they thought that I was the ringleader of this organization called the Blade Runners in the United Kingdom, who are systematically dismantling the surveillance state, of which I'm fully supportive of on so many levels. But it goes all the way back to about 2020, I would say, when my house was broken into on Christmas Eve. It had been broken into 2 nights before, and they'd stolen things, and I was more heightened. And then they broke in on Christmas Eve, day before Christmas Eve, 2020, I think it was, might have been 2021. And I have a lamp in my house because we don't have a Second Amendment in the United Kingdom, or a First Amendment for that matter, but we don't have a Second Amendment. So I have a lamp in my house, of which is it's a standing lamp, and the lamp stand is made of a decommissioned mid-19th century shotgun. And I took out this shotgun from the lamp stand and I pointed it at these burglars, and I went, get the many expletives out of my house, which they did. I hit one of the burglars on the way out, and when the police arrived, they arrested me. They said,
"See, this is something that people
you're using
in red state America can't identify with.
You're using a concealed weapon." I'm like, "No, my house is being burgled." And I had 10 by 8 quality footage because I was burgled 2 days before. I'd installed CCTV straight away inside the house as well as outside the house. So I had 10 by 8 quality, 4K pictures of these burglars, walking in and out of my house with all my kids' Christmas presents. And I was informed by the Crown Prosecution Service that there was not enough evidence to charge these gentlemen with any crime, having been harassed by them. My youngest son told me just the other day that after that incident, he has a BB gun, which he keeps under his bed. So, it.
I'm surprised those are legal there.
Yeah, well, no, but they would happily shoot you for that. So it's, I'm very minded that in any other situation, without firearms on both sides, there wouldn't have been, the possibility of what was a very a millisecond of Mexican standoff. They don't want to go, you don't want to go. And that's actually what saved the situation. Whereas in England, we're defenseless. And I've said frequently that the police are our enemy. As I said, I've never had an interaction with the police. I had the other day. I've been accused of sexual assault by this woman who called for higher standards in public life. And she's famous for flashing her private parts to anybody who will watch them. And what they do a deal. Essentially what happens is minorly famous people, women especially, will do a deal with a photographer whereby they say, I'm going to be at this place and I'm not wearing any underwear. So the photographer will turn up, they'll get 200, 300 quid for a picture of said pantless woman or Nicholas lady, and they split the money. Anyway,
have you ever done that, Laurence? Did you ever go anywhere, without your underwear? And
I'm not wearing any underwear currently, no. Anyway, so this woman, when she called for higher standards in public life, she's called Narinda Kaur. She's a vile, race-baiting little... she's not very clever, which doesn't... I mean, I don't mind race baiters if they're a bit smarter because they're more fun to toy with. But this is a stupid race baiter. Anyway, she's calling for higher standards in public life. And I shared this picture that was taken 15 years ago. And I said, perhaps you should start with higher standards in your own life. Or something similar to that. And she then reported me to the police.
Well, I think she was enjoying it. I actually followed you on this, and we discussed it. I think she liked to have this faux outrage, but I think she liked herself in that photo.
Yeah,
that's
well,
she came off to me.
Also, she gets a lot of engagement whenever she talks to me. Of course. So she gets paid to do it. But anyway, she says I've sexually assaulted her. She's being stupid. She doesn't understand the law and why various people in the United Kingdom have resisted this idea of this, what they call the upskirting law, because some people do it deliberately. And therefore, those people that do it deliberately should be called out because they are standing as a bulwark against the justice of people who don't do it deliberately. And therefore they should be treated with the absolute fundamental derision that someone who thinks that their genitals are, a financial product should be treated with, like a prostitute, like she is a prostitute in my mind, in my opinion, just in case she wants to watch this and try and sue me for libel. In my view,
could you be clearer what you think about this woman?
I think she's a brain-dead, moronic leftist prostitute. That, in my view, I think she behaves like a prostitute. She sells her vagina for money. That's what prostitutes do. Anyway, she accuses me of sexual assault, which is a criminal offence, right? And she says, and she does this repeatedly, over and over and over. And I'm like, okay, you can't do that. These are damaging allegations. You know what the propaganda media is. They just report that. They won't report anything else. They'll just go, Laurence Fox accused of sexual assault on top of all the other things I'm accused of on a daily basis. Well, not anymore because I've decided not to engage with it for a while. But anyway, I go to the police and I say, this is a criminal offence. This needs to be dealt with. I get an email from the police. Good morning, Mr. Fox. I'm emailing on behalf of the officer in charge as they are currently off. I'm emailing to notify yourself that this case is being sent to the Crown Prosecution Service, was reviewed by a lawyer, and they've made a decision that there's not sufficient evidence to provide a realistic prospect of conviction. If you have any other queries, please contact me. Kind regards, this dude. Anyway, It's the same as the 10 by 8 pictures of the burglars. No realistic. So I responded, "Good morning. Thank you for your correspondence. I will seek legal advice on this issue. I was directly accused of sexual assault on repeated occasions by Miss Kaur. This is on her social media feeds. I'm not sure what further evidence you would need to proceed with the case. This seems to me yet another example of the two-tier justice system in the United Kingdom, where wild and highly damaging allegations can be made against people based solely on their ethnicity and political persuasion, and no sanction will be made. I'm deeply unsurprised by the corruption endemic in both the police and the judiciary in this decaying country. Once trust in pivotal national institutions is lost, the stability of the society and the nation is undermined. Thank you for reminding me that I'm a second-class citizen in my own country, Laurence Fox." And I'm about sick to death of it, because the problem that I've got is I've tweeted, if the police come to your door, greet them with a weapon. Not hit them with a weapon, greet them with a weapon. I've tweeted that. And if the police came, we've had this conversation before, but if there are any police watching this, which I'm sure they do, because of the way that I'm treated in this country, if you do come to my house, you will be met with angry dogs and violence. That's it. Unless you're literally going to knock on the door and ask me if you'd like to pursue some of the crimes that have been committed against me properly. I treat the police as an absolute fundamental enemy of the British people, all of them.
Yeah, and that's very sad.
And it's so sad, because once you realise that law enforcement is not law enforcement, it's political policing. What you want to do is you want to stay as far away from them as possible, and B, you have no trust in anything that they would do. So in a situation like yours, in my situation, it would escalate very quickly, and there would be armed police officers around my house. And, if my kids are here, you just don't know what's going to happen. So either you submit to these forces or you actually resist them. And that verse is very powerful. And I think the version I'd read was slightly different, which is our conflict is not merely against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against the rulers of darkness in this world. And you're reminded that is what you're fighting. You're fighting Satan. That's it. And Satan may go into someone with a police uniform, or may go into the person who gives the person in the police uniform their orders, or in your case, the person who made the phone call. And I just don't have any truck with it anymore. So I don't know what one does, but as the situation in the United Kingdom continues to deteriorate, to such a terrible degree, we need something along the lines of our own version of Second Amendment, be that an Englishman's home is his castle law, or something similar, where you can say it's my property unless there is a direct and imminent threat to life, similar to what was presented to you. You come anywhere near me. Lizzie and I have practiced drills of what we do if Islamists break into our house. We have a set, because we wouldn't call the police. That's for sure. And that's so sad in such a short period of time to see your country turn into a fascist Stasi-esque type state right before your eyes. I mean, thank God we don't live in London anymore, because it would be even worse. But this is what happens when these movements, and when Satan is exposed, and when you see it for what it is, and more people are seeing it. More and more Americans are seeing it. That's why they voted Trump in. Good, ordinary Americans voted Trump in. Just normal people. They said enough is enough of this craziness. And Britain we don't have that solution. We don't have a Trump. Our politics is not structured around that sort of figure. And we are going to hell in a handbasket. And the people who phoned me up weirdly in the last couple of weeks since I've not been on social media, they're all really upset. They're like, have you seen this? Have you seen what's going on? Can you do? And I'm like, no, I haven't. I have no interest in seeing it. And they're like, well, you've given up. You've given up. You don't care. I'm like, no, I really do care.
Yeah, I don't listen to that.
But you know what? Listening to you going at me, asking me what's going to happen, because that's people go, what is going to happen? And I go, it's going to get a lot worse. And they're like, well, and the woman I spoke to yesterday, she said, my husband, he's been an East Ender, he's born and raised, born and bred, and he just says we need to leave. And I said, get out, leave. Britain is finished, in my view. I cannot see any single glimmer of human-based hope that is going to bring this country back from the brink for the next at least 2 or 3 years, until ordinary people start to go, you know what, this isn't fair, this isn't right, you know, this is wrong. We're being treated worse than the slaves of the people that are invading our country. That's how we're treated. That's how the indigenous British people are treated, of all skin colours. You know, second, third generation people from all different racial backgrounds are being treated. The people that pay tax in this country, the people that contribute to the economy, they're being treated like the scum slaves of the people, of the Mohammedan invaders of this country. And that's how I feel about it. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. And our politics is dead, because Nigel Farage, who vaingloriously and narcissistically wants to kind of help lead us out of it, is in cahoots with a Mohammedan. So he is equal shareholders in his party with a Mohammedan. And the minute somebody, Rupert Lowe, who mentioned the fact that we've got to get rid of these foreign criminals, we've got over 40,000 people on the terrorist watch list. Why are these people in our country? Our jails are full of Islamist terrorists. Why are these people in our country? Why? That's what I want to know. And Trump just logically said, get rid of them. And I love the new messaging from Trump, which is like, I hope you self-deport, because if you don't self-deport, you'll never come back here. So if you self-deport and you're a reasonable person, you do want to come back into the United States and contribute, do that. But in the United Kingdom, we live in service and slavery to our invaders, and we have given our country away, and it's been undermined over my lifetime. I've noticed it happen over my lifetime, an absolute pathological hatred of what it is to be British, a hatred of no mention of the fact that we ended the slave trade 30 years before America did, no mention of the fact that Britain brought equality under the law across the world, no mention of the fact that Britain civilized the world. We are taught that we are the most disgusting things on the face of the earth, and both our main political parties believe this because they were all taught it in school. So I look at America, and Lizzie and I both look at America, and we just go, I think it's hard. You know, one wants to fight for one's country to save it, but I don't really know what we're fighting for anymore, because until there's enough people to go, this is too much, this is not right. I don't want my son not getting a job because he happens to be white. You know, until they roll back, until we get our own Doge, until we get people just throwing this DEI stuff out, but we don't have it. We have an insurgency party led by a populist left-winger in Nigel Farage, and he has been, sorry to waffle on, but I'm just so angry about this man. At every single time the British people, other than Margaret Thatcher, have tried to take on the establishment in this country, which is ingrained, you know, it's thousands of years old, the establishment. And
your own deep state.
Yeah, but our deep state is 1,000+ years old. You know, it's much cleverer than the American one, and more subtle. And but what Farage is doing is, every time, Brexit is a classic example. We wanted our sovereignty back. Farage was dead in the middle of it, and it never really happened in anything other than name. He stood down a huge number of Brexit MEPs that would have pushed MPs who would have pushed through the agenda to return our sovereignty, return simple things like fishing grounds, our power infrastructure, all of this stuff. Farage was there, and he was on every single time. He scuppered it. And now he's leading a fake insurgency. And the people in this country who are longing with hope for something to change are putting their money, I don't think they are actually, I think it will go pop, but they are putting their hope in a man who, to me, you know, again, I speak my mind, I think he's a traitorous little sod. I think that he's being paid off to sell our country down the river. And, you know, and that's what he's always done. And people hold him up as some hero in this country. I think he's a traitor. That's what I think. Honest enough for you?
That's an awful lot. We started with a crazy woman and ended up at Nigel Farage. Well, let me say this about police. so that people have a better context here. There are some who'd be listening to us who are fiercely anti-police and thus would resonate with your comments. And then there would be others, which tends to be the sentiment in blue states here, which is back the blue. Back the blue. You'll see that.
While defunding
bumper
them.
sticker. Yeah,
While
meaning we support our local police departments. The truth is, it's more nuanced than that, isn't it? In the UK, what you have is just as you've indicated, these are political police now. They are an arm of a police state, of a surveillance state, and Britain is absolutely a surveillance state. London has more cameras, has more surveillance than any other city outside of China. And here in the United States, I would say that the situation, it varies from hence the distinction I was making. I have had bad experiences with police officers. I've had very positive ones. I'll never forget when I was a kid, and this is very typical South, Laurence. My dad had a brand new car. I mean, a brand new car, a beautiful brand new car. And he let me take it out with my friends on a Friday night. And it wasn't my fault, but that car got totaled that night. A woman ran a stop sign. She T-boned me and a friend. We were in the car. It's funny, I'll never forget, Duran Duran was playing in the background. Her name is Rio. And never forget. And we do a 180. And I get out and I'm looking at the car, the smashed hood, everything. And Alabama state trooper arrives, and he's driving me home. I don't even know if they do this anymore, but he drives me home. And the whole way home, I'm 16 and I'm sitting in the car and I'm saying, my dad is going to be so angry. My dad is going to be so angry. And he said, son, isn't your fault. It's not your fault. And so we get to my house. We get out of the car, and as we're walking in, he can see I'm distraught. And, because I'm now about to walk in and face the wrath of my father. And he turns to me and says, do you want me to draw my gun? And so we walk into the house. And I'm the first. My dad is watching an Atlanta Braves baseball game, and he says, hey, son. And then the state trooper steps in, and my dad sits up, and he goes, what have you done? And he says, Mr. Taunton, your son was in an automobile accident. Everyone is okay. It was not his fault. Someone ran a stop sign and hit his car. And as soon as the state trooper left, my father unleashed on me. And then when he gathered himself, he came in and said, that was wrong. I'm glad you're safe. He says, that's a company car, and I have to go in and explain how that car's been totaled. Anyway, that was a very positive experience. That was a very fair, reasonable interaction with law enforcement who, really served as my advocate. There's been a time or two, I've been stranded alongside the road, and a police officer stops and has very, very kindly helped me. I've also had those very negative experiences, and we've all seen, videos of bad law enforcement. The fact of the matter is, there are bad actors and there are bad writers and there are bad reporters, there are also bad police officers. Now we'll wait and see how my situation plays out. The FBI, they just before I got on here with you, Laurence, I got a call from the sheriff's department that told me that they are now involving the FBI, and my initial response to that was great, awesome. But then I thought, what if these are, some of the terrible FBI that we've seen, acting around the United States?
You'll have Cash Patel. Christy Nome tweeted about it. You sent me. So they're onto this. This is going to be handled by the new FBI.
Yeah, I sure hope so, because all the way down, the food chain, we'll see how much of that has changed. But my interactions with the police department relating to this, you even saw that I tweeted a photo that I'm laughing and having a little bit of fun with these guys who came out to my house. And after something this intense, adrenaline's flowing through my veins, adrenaline's flowing through their veins. They think they're going into an active shooter murder scenario. I think that there are people on my deck who are there to murder me and my wife. I am thinking, how long, it's interesting because I've been through, unfortunately, several of these types of things in my life. And one thing that's always true that you come out of it is you don't really have any sense of time. How long did that last? Did it last 30 seconds? Did it last 5 minutes? After Cairo, I told Lori I was writing an article about the event in Cairo, and I said, how long was that? 45 minutes, an hour? She said, sweetheart, it was almost 3 hours that you were sitting in that car and that they were surrounding the vehicle. She showed me the timestamp of my texts, and I was like, oh, wow. And that's because you're so focused. It's so intense. So on the heels of that, on my deck, a place where you sat and smoked a cigarette and a cigar, Trinidad cigars, which I'll expect 1 or 2. By the way, I just bought a couple of Trinidads, and I didn't realize what I was asking of you when I said bring a box.
Yeah, I know.
I thought they would probably be in the UK because they're legal. I thought they'd probably be, $18 a stick. I just was in Rome and I bought a Trinidad, and I think it was 50 euros or something.
Yeah, that's on the cheaper end of the scale.
Yeah, on the cheaper end. So I'll only ask you to bring half a box.
It's interesting what you say about that story of what happened when the police officer took you back to your father, because the direct correlation for that story is in the United Kingdom after a young white girl was brutally by a very, very, very large number of Asian men, Pakistani Muslim paedophile gangs. And she went to the police station and was fobbed off by the policeman, and she went back outside and she was picked up by the same men. That's how for me, I don't want to sound like a, grumpy, whining conspiracy theorist. It's all going to hell kind of guy. But that is an example of, and, YouTube will probably have an issue with me saying it, but that is an example of how much the British establishment will bend over to those that hate us with every single fiber of their being, and they see
and have weaponized police force.
Well, our police force, the great blessing that I can see, and I have played a part in this, so I'm grateful for this, is every year when Pride Month starts and the police cars suddenly start appearing with pride flags all over them, and the police start decking themselves out in pride stuff, which is essentially just Marxist socialist grievance movement. Every year I get out a flag and I set fire to it, and I explain why I don't like it, and I set fire to it.
I've seen this.
And this year Pride has lost a huge number of its corporate sponsors, and people are walking away from this movement because they know that their customers don't like it. And I'm encouraged on that level that it's in America, it went out with a bang. In Britain, it's going to go out with a whimper, and that in itself is going to be sad. But the Pride this year, when I burn my Pride flag this year, it's going to be, I will do it from a position of victory to the point where I will never have to burn one ever again. But I will look at London, and I will see when I go down to London what these BLM, even in Washington, I hear that they've got rid of that big BLM thing that they put down on the road and on the walls. And even the mayor of Washington has got rid of that, and we are slowly getting rid of this of us being forced to feel dreadful about ourselves because of something that we cannot change. And if God tells me anything, he tells me that you have to look at other people with the same love that you would look at anybody. You do, but you can also, the difficulty is also trying to find out when your tolerance has to stop. And my tolerance for divisive political movements, for people who phone up police forces and try and have you killed, is zero. I have zero tolerance for it.
Yeah, me too.
I have zero tolerance for Black Lives Matter. I have zero tolerance for the show trial of Derek Chauvin. I have zero tolerance for these perverted deviant people who think that we're going to tolerate and include them, be more inclusive if they decide to walk around our streets in jock straps and masks and perform sexual acts in front of children. Zero tolerance. It's finished. And I think that the British people will catch up on this. And
I hope so.
Large portion of them are.
I think a big difference, Laz, as I think about your police and our police, as you're describing it, and I'm thinking on this, a big difference is this. In most cases in our country, certainly not all, California and New York, a few other places standing out as exceptions, but generally speaking, the police have not yet become the political arm of a radicalized, Democrat Party. For instance, in my own state, during the lockdowns and the masking and all this kind of stuff, several police and sheriff's departments said we won't enforce those laws. We're not going to enforce them. We're not going to go around patrolling people and telling them they can't be out of their house or they got to wear a mask. We won't do it. And I was having a big Christmas party the year of the pandemic, and I had made inquiry of the sheriff's department, is this going to get me in any trouble? And they said, no, go ahead. And they said, just tell people to do as their conscience dictates. They want to wear a mask, let them wear a mask. They want to social distance, let them social distance. But we don't require that you do any of that stuff. So, that hasn't yet happened here. So that, again,
well, that's why you left, right? That's why they left. The people who left Europe left for that reason.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Why you left, and that's why America, with its geography. I mean, it's interesting that Australia isn't that way, but America, with its geography and and that lovely sort of dance between the federal and the state, legislatures. It's such a good system. And it does allow for rapid change, even though that all of the three branches of the what is it, the executive, is that what it's called? Those three branches are designed to slow everything down. It leaves room for a rapid shift in direction for a nation, because it's all about freedom. The whole thing is based on freedom. The whole idea of America is based on freedom, whereas the whole idea of Britain is based on servitude and serfdom. And the whole idea of Europe is based on collective servitude and serfdom. And you then get Trump, who turns around and starts saying really logical things like, why do you need NATO anymore? And what's the British Prime Minister's reaction to that? It's to start dick swinging with an army of less than 70,000. I mean, you have more special forces than we have in our entire military. And
isn't that sad and terrifying? Honestly.
And our Prime Minister, but the propaganda is so brilliantly done. And one of the great things, I think I mentioned this to you before, and sorry I'm repeating myself, but it's really worth reiterating, is the fact that I have switched off all of this stuff so that I don't hear anything but what your average punter will hear. And I now realize very clearly why propaganda is invented, because it doesn't matter if it's a lie. If you say it loud enough, often enough, it will penetrate the ears of even the most disinterested listener. So all I have heard since I've switched off social media and since I don't watch the news, all I have heard is what a hero Keir Starmer is, even though he's the very opposite of that, how evil Donald Trump is, and how we must do everything for Ukraine. That's all I've heard. That's it. Don't protect your own borders, but let's protect Ukraine's. That's all. And I know that just is going into someone's head. And if someone who's not interested in politics walks into a pub, or who's not interested in the state of the nation, walks into a pub or a coffee shop or a restaurant or a dinner party, and they start talking and someone has a different view to that, I can see why they turn around and go, no, but you don't understand. Putin evil, Zelensky amazing, Starmer hero, but our borders welcoming refugees. It's just all rubbish. And I find it so demoralizing that people don't even think for themselves anymore. But I now understand why propaganda is so important, because it will penetrate even the most stubborn ear.
Well, to kind of put a bow on the point I'm making about police and the difference about police. I had tweeted the day after this event at my home, this swatting event at my home. I had tweeted a series of videos and explaining what had happened at my home. It now has 36 million views, 36 million views. And I had said in there, listen, these police officers, these are good guys. I doubt there was a Biden or Kamala voter among them. And I had a number of people come in, using vile language and telling me how awful I was to politicize the situation. And I thought, what disgusting human beings you are. What world do you live in that you don't recognize the swatting of my home was a political event? It was a political event. It was done precisely for political reasons. And it wasn't. People saying, you're wrong to think that it might be Democrats. I'm wrong to think that maybe the people who burn Teslas, maybe the people who kill kids, who lop their sexual organs off, maybe the people who annihilate the unborn, who want unending carnage in war, who burn cities. I'm wrong to think that maybe, just maybe, they were involved in an attempt to kill me and possibly my wife. And see what these swatting events are, Laurence, is this to me is the best way to describe it. It is an attempt to assassinate by proxy, using police forces. This really gets at the heart of what I'm trying to say about the police, and maybe I'm not saying it particularly well, the difference between your country and my country. In my country, law enforcement is being used unwittingly to assassinate political rivals, or at the very least to silence them. And they don't care, by the way, if these police officers come to my home and some of them have gotten killed, I'd have gotten killed, my wife they don't care. More carnage, the better. And they're getting off watching it on social media. I'm sure they make that call and then sit back and watch my Twitter account, or something to see it come on. They get some kind of sick high on that.
They're also the ones commentating on. I mean, I'm sure the FBI will be looking through your responses.
Absolutely,
because
these
I'm
are
sure that
awful
these
people.
It's like killers who cannot help but return to the scene of the crime.
Scene of the crime.
It's exactly that.
Sergeant Hathaway would know this. This is what these people do. Yeah. And so in your country, however, the police are being used. The people coming, the images that we've seen in this episode of the police coming to your home, they're witting accomplices. They're witting accomplices of a police state. In my case, they're unwitting. Now, again, I can't speak to all the other swatting instances. They might have enjoyed terrorizing these families because, again, it's not necessarily true across the board. But yesterday I had a speaking engagement. And a lot of people show up. They're very aware of what's been happening in my life. And someone joked with me, well, gosh, you don't have anything to talk about today. And another woman, she was chatting with me, and she said, gosh, I was thinking we're talking about USAID, and now this has happened. And she says, golly, the images at your home just look just terrifying. She said, what happened to you in Cairo looked terrifying. I said, yeah, but I'm going to use this today to encourage people. And she kind of cocked her head sideways and said, how in the world are you going to do that? And that's what I want to do here right now. Laurence, you have been harassed as a result of, being outspoken, because of a meme or burning a faggoty flag or something like that. There's been, 2 attempts on my life in just the last, month to 6 weeks, again, by proxy. And to me, this makes me more determined. I have told the group of people who've been swatted, again, we're all in contact with each other and we're conversing privately. And I said, look, our collective response needs to be one of defiance. It needs to be Streisand effect, this whole thing. Tweet it and retweet it. Tweet and retweet each other's stories. Post and repost those stories. Grow your platform, grow your audience, start talking about this more than you were talking about it before. Make them regret having brought attention to you. I mean, I've gained, I don't know, 45,000 new followers on Twitter just in a couple of days because of this. I don't even know that I was planning to talk about Ukraine or Israel or USAID much more, but you better believe I am now. So I'm just going to keep pounding that drum because our response to these things needs to be defiance. And I want people who are listening to us to understand this. I didn't see it when it came out. Maybe you did, Laurence. Well, no, you didn't, because you're younger than I am. I was maybe 3 when The Exorcist came out. But I remember a guy telling me that he saw it when he was in college, and he said it was the most terrifying movie he'd ever seen. He said, I didn't sleep for a week after watching that movie. I don't watch it. I don't want to watch it, but I've seen enough images from it. And to me, we're at that moment in the film, where the cross has been revealed and the demon is, and Linda Blair's head is spinning and she's projectile vomiting and all these kind of things. One of the patterns you see in scripture is that demonic activity was always strongest where Jesus was working, wherever he was working. The devil is very happy to leave you alone and to let you nibble around the edges and, do things of relative unimportance. But when you go straight at the gates of hell, you are going to stir up the demons of hell. And this is, as we've said from the beginning here, this is a spiritual battle. And so there is massive pushback. And when someone tries to off me, it says to me that I'm getting pretty close. If you remember the old Columbo episodes, there's always this, he'll be talking to his criminals are always elegant, and wealthy and speak with, interestingly enough, kind of a condescending British accent. And Columbo will say, my lieutenant, told me that I need to get off of this case and I need to move on. And he says, whenever anybody does that, it always makes me think I need to press on just a little bit more. And for me, that's where I am. I think that's where you are. And so I want to encourage people who are listening. What was Trump's response when they tried to blow his head off? Fight, fight, fight. That needs to be our response.
I agree. I think that's absolutely bang on. I couldn't agree more. I think it's how one fights. I suppose it's like these big incidents happen, and they do. I think it's important to keep banging the drum all the time, but also I think there's time away from the shell shock and the blowing up of the bombs and all of that stuff, where you need to sit back and go, are we attacking the right part of the enemy's defenses? Are we, you use the phrase all guns blazing, are we going straight at the gates of hell in the right way? Or is the way to do it to look and say, here's an example. This Labour socialist guy in the UK beat up one of his constituents. He punched him again, then he's on the ground and he punched him again and again and again. It was a horrible assault. Nothing happened to this guy for a very long time. In the meantime, they were very busy locking up people on the other side of the argument for tweeting hurty words. But finally, this guy gets thrown out. He gets a 10-week suspended sentence. That's it, nothing. Same as our major national broadcaster, chief newsreader, the guy that announced the Queen's death when he was found to be a vile paedophile. He still gets his pension. He never went to jail. So the system will protect those that it deems worthy of the system. But you know what it took to call a by-election in his constituency to actually get people? They haven't quite called it, but they will now. It took this fight in this insurgent party in the UK Reform before the British establishment turned around and went, right, let's do it. Let's do the by-election. Let's see. And you just go, wow, the levels of endemic corruption in the system are so enormous. that, yeah, charge at the gates of hell by all means, but also be aware that those gates of hell have been handcrafted by the finest masons of evil and ironmongers of evil.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go at them, you're going to hit a lot of painful things. So sometimes for me, certainly for me in this iteration of me, is just to sit back and go, okay, how bad, now that I know how bad it is, how bad really is it? And what is the way in? Because the way in is to win people over to the idea of what they're living under, the suffrage that they're living under, and how does one do that effectively? And that, I suppose, is more of a practical question than doing what I do and what you do, and which is put yourself in the firing line all the time. I think sometimes it's good to go, okay, well, if this system needs dismantling, then how do you dismantle it? I mean, the whole thing, Trump sat there on a little baby desk and he signed away the Department of Education, saving children from yet more indoctrination into the evils of BLM, transgenderism, and all of this woke shit, that climate crap that they do. And he did that because he's able to do it. He'll be challenged. Our own conservative education secretary wouldn't do that.
You're much farther gone, that's for sure.
I tried to challenge these people. I tried to challenge them. I tried to have the stuff that was being done to our kids judicially reviewed, which is a completely pointless thing to do in many ways, but it has been shown to be effective. And they said you can't challenge it because it's not even law; it's just guidance. So we're just guiding teachers to teach children that they can be born in the wrong body. So then you go, okay, well, if that's how bad, how utterly corrupt the whole thing is, then you're going to have to fight clever. And at the moment, I think that we need an army in this country, an army of the furious, before we're going to be able to make change. Because the grown-ups table of the establishment is very alluring, even to those that want to be insurgents, I suppose. But I agree with you, and I'm hopeful. I'm just not as hopeful as you are about Britain.
Well, I'm not necessarily hopeful about Britain, and I agree with you that the tactics in our respective countries might need to be different. What you do versus what we do might look a little bit different. I have a much greater network of support here than you have there. I think we're seeing a situation of the tail wagging the dog here, meaning I think most Americans are on board with Trump. I don't think most British people are on board with you. And that's the difference, as your country is, to your point, so far gone that you feel like the British people that my country thinks of when they think of the British people, though they're gone. They haven't existed for a very long time, and there are only a few of you left. So here the tactics can look a lot different, but my point still stands that we fight, whatever that looks like, wherever you are. And those who are listening to us, you don't have to have a YouTube channel. You don't have to be a news broadcaster, influencer, any of that stuff. You just faithfully respond to the things that the Lord puts in front of you. Just you faithfully respond to each one of them. And that might be voting. That might be the way that you raise your children. That might be speaking out when you feel so led. But I would go to another passage of Scripture that I love, and I refer to it many times, and it's where Joshua is now, Moses is dead, and Moses is the Winston Churchill of the nation of Israel. And Joshua must have felt, he never expresses it, but he must have felt some intimidated by this responsibility that now he's succeeding Moses, that every Israelite kid, had his poster on their tent wall. And now here's Joshua, and the Lord says to him, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. And he says it 3 times, be strong and courageous. And he says, meditate on my word day and night, that you will turn from it neither to the right hand nor to the left hand, but be strong and courageous. And, those words, they're inspiring to me. And I think to myself, if what I can do is in some way model some measure of courage for people who are watching, something wonderful can come from that. And I'll make one more biblical reference. The nation of Israel, the is in battle with the Philistines, and they're in their trenches. And each day, the Philistines send out their hero, Goliath, to mock them. He comes out of the trench like Hulk Hogan, comes out and he blasphemes the God of the Israelites. He mocks them. He basically tells them, you're all a bunch of wussies, that you won't fight, and supposedly you believe in your God. Look at you. You're all cowardly. And each day they do this. And a young David, this is well before he was king, shepherd boy, is sent to take food to the army. And he arrives on the battlefield and he says, what's going on here? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the response to him from his older brother, who was in the army, he says, you're arrogant. You ever been called that, Laurence? You're arrogant. You're arrogant. David was showing confidence in his God. He wasn't saying, I'm great. He's saying, the God we serve is great. Why don't we act like it? What are we doing here? So finally, David says, I'll fight him. If none of you will, I will. And David goes out, and of course, the story is well told, well known. David kills Goliath. But then it says a shout went up from the armies of Israel, and they come out of their fortifications, their trenches, and they charged the Philistines. And it says that they pursued them until darkness. Sometimes doing what you're doing, Laurence, doing what I'm doing, and many others like us, what you're hoping happens is someone says, I can do that. I could push back. I could do that. And that eventually a shout goes up from our side where people say, you know what, I am tired of this. And I am going to push back. In a sense, this is what Trump has done. Yes. I mean, there's a whole nation that has decided that guy's pushing back. They tried to kill him. I don't like this. We're going to start pushing back. And a Tommy Robinson in your country is trying to do this. Calvin is trying to do this. You're trying to do this. I think to some extent, Jeremy Clarkson is trying to do it. And eventually, you're hoping that there will be, which is what's happened in the United States, a populist uprising that says we are sick of these globalist scumbags who are telling us that all the perverse things that they're pushing in their agenda are good for us. We've had enough. We don't want it. And that's what I really want to encourage people who are listening here to do. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to run because I have to go do a Fox News interview. But brother, it's good to see you. Would you add anything to that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I've got to run too, because I'm going to take my son and the dogs to the high tide, where we're going to watch the dogs go crazy. But yes, courage and good, and all of those stories, the darkest before the dawn, and all of that sort of stuff is so true. And I think the David story is really relevant, and it is interesting that courage can be mistaken for arrogance as well. So yeah, everyone should speak freely, and from speaking freely, the truth will find its way out.
Well, take us out, my friend.
Well, that has been the one where I'm still able to do WTF with Larry Taunton, because he's alive and he wasn't killed on the whims of some leftist, demonic, Satan-worshipping bastard. And with that, we send our love. See you next week.